Okay, so behind me here is St. Paul's Chapel. You heard me mention it earlier because it was where George Washington came for his special Inauguration Day services. We're very lucky to be standing here looking at St. Paul's today. One, because of course it is a beautiful old church. It is modeled after St. Martin of the Fields in Trafalgar Square in London. Also, we are lucky to be standing here because we've almost lost St. Paul's twice. In the Great Fire of 1776, Trinity Church burned to the ground. St. Paul's was managed to be saved because of a bucket brigade of water coming from the Hudson. That was why. So St. Paul's was actually built to be a sister parish of Trinity Church. It was for the uptown parishioners who lived too far up to make it down to Trinity. Guys, they're 7 blocks apart. That's totally ridiculous to anyone who commutes over 100 blocks to work. However, here it is. So it was the one that was used for Inauguration Day services instead of Trinity for that reason. St. Paul's also came into prominence again after the terrorist attacks on 9/11. It was in a perfect location to be used as a relief center for the emergency workers. They would come here, they could rest, they could eat. It was surprisingly not touched, which given its proximity to the World Trade Center is really incredible. It's an old building. It should have crumbled to the ground and it didn't. It's still here today. The fence out front sprang up as kind of an impromptu memorial. After 9/11, people came and they would leave notes, flowers, candles, stuffed animals. People just needed a way to express their grief at what had happened, and it became this impromptu memorial. The church officials decided to help people out and put up some plywood boards to help serve as a bigger memorial in case people wanted to leave it. They started with 15. They ended up needing 150. It was the first unofficial 9/11 memorial. So, as you can see, the new tower is going up right now. It is colloquially called the Freedom Tower. Its official title is just One World Trade Center. The original design was a competition-winning design by Daniel Libeskind. It was a beautiful design. It looked like a twisted shard of glass going up towards the sky. It was eventually discarded in favor of this design, which does have more usable office space. The only thing that's really left from his design is its symbolic height. It is 1,776 feet tall as of last week. The spire is on. It is now at its official height. It is obviously in honor of 1776, the year that our independence was declared. But let's go back to the original World Trade Center. And it was designed in the 1960s by a Japanese architect, Minoru Yamasaki. It was a multi-building complex and it had a vast plaza. The original two towers were maybe not the most visually appealing, but structurally they were amazing. They had no core supporting beam. Everything was built into a massive steel mesh that was built into the building's skin. That created more usable office space. The construction was a huge process because this land over here was originally mostly landfill, so they had to build massive concrete bathtubs to lay the foundations in to keep out the water and the debris. The World Trade Center became an icon of commerce later on, but originally it was not a popular project. It was taken on by the Port Authority. It was one of the only organizations big enough to finance such a huge project. At the time, we were in a serious economic downturn. People didn't like the idea of spending obscene amounts of money on this project when the rest of the city was in such a crisis. People didn't like the Trade Center. They didn't like the buildings. They thought they were ugly and imposing and impersonal. It wasn't New York. It wasn't us. Some people didn't like that the crown for tallest building was going to be taken away for the Empire State Building. Either way, people weren't happy. This all changed because of an absolutely insane Frenchman, Philippe Petit. This man strung a tightrope in between the two towers one day and performed an entire tightrope show in between the two towers. This was crazy, and it was not a publicity stunt from World Trade Center. This was guerrilla art, street art. He was trespassing. The police came to arrest him, but a crowd had started to gather outside. People loved this. They were watching him. At one point, he laid down in between the two towers and just looked up at the sky on his tightrope. The manager of the World Trade Center begged the police not to arrest this guy. This was a godsend. This was publicity. And people were all of a sudden looking at these buildings with something that wasn't just disgust. They were excited. It was put a human, very New York spin on these buildings. He was ultimately arrested. He was charged with 14 misdemeanors, but he ended up only being sentenced to performing a free show in Central Park for a group of children. He was given a lifetime pass to the observation deck in gratitude. The World Trade Center did turn around ultimately. It started to really live up to its name. The restaurant on top, Windows on the World, had a 7-month waiting list. It did become a booming center of commerce. United States Customs moved there. On September 11th, as everybody probably knows, it was the target of a terrorist attack. 2 hijacked planes hit the north and south towers. The towers were actually designed in mind with a plane hitting them, because a plane had hit the Empire State Building many years earlier. What was not accounted for was the jet fuel, and these were office buildings. They were filled to the brim with paper. They were a firebox. The buildings ignited and did end up collapsing in on themselves. And the other buildings in the Trade Center were destroyed as well. Thousands of people were killed. We lost many people, and including our first responders who responded to the attacks. This was a huge tragedy, both for the city and for our country. New York was in turmoil. People didn't know what to do. They felt shaken to their very core. After the attacks, Rudolph Giuliani, the mayor of New York at the time, was asked, "What are we going to do?" And without hesitation, he said, "We're going to rebuild." Of course we are, because we're New Yorkers and that's what we do. We are known around the world for a lot of things, some of them not very favorable, but one of them is our resiliency. Of course we rebuilt. We are rebuilding today. So this is really the perfect place to end our tour. We have St. Paul's behind me. It's our city's roots and our history. And in front of you, you have One World Trade Center, our new beautiful tower. We're rebuilding. We're looking towards the future. I love this city. I don't want to live anywhere else in the world. I love it so much. I am so happy to get to share it with all of you. If you love it 1/100th as much as I do, I'm going to call it a good day's work. Thank you very much.